Hi, it's Leanne, and I'm here today with my 9th review from the Man Booker Longlist this year, and it's of Warlight by Ondaatje. So we know by now the Booker Prize shortlist. I was hoping to avoid it. I did an absolutely terrible job. I think I lasted about half an hour. So we know now that Warlight did not make the Booker shortlist. What I'll say is Warlight is probably one of my favourite books from the long list this year, but can I understand why it didn't make the shortlist? Yes, and I'll explain why. So Warlight is about two teenagers in 1945 whose parents leave to supposedly work abroad. They leave them in the care of a quite mysterious group of characters. It soon becomes clear that the parent story is not what they have claimed it to be, and that the characters who the children are now living with have a lot more to them than what they appear as well. So the story is told by Nathaniel, who's the younger of the two children, and he's looking back on it about 10 to 15 years later, trying to basically make sense of this period in his life. Now, Warlight is very much feels like the most traditional of all of this year's Booker Longlist books. You're reading it, you're thinking, this is definitely an experienced writer. He knows what he's doing. He's just telling this interesting story about these interesting characters just in a very experienced way, which is good. That sometimes that is what you really, really want out of a literary novel. But it does feel quite jarring alongside a lot of the other books in the long list, such as In Our Mad and Furious City, what else? Milkman. I get there's other books that I still haven't read, but The Long Take, for example, which is written in verse, this is very much the most traditionally written of the books. Like I say, this is not a bad thing, but I think if you're reading through the whole long list, it is gonna seem it definitely stands out, and I expected that it wouldn't make the shortlist for that reason, and so it's been proven. But I really, really enjoyed it. It's the thing that I liked the most about it was Nathaniel is very interested throughout the book in maps. See, I've got books here. I'm also quite interested in maps, and he is very interested in what they tell us, as well as the actual purpose of maps in general. And that's what this story felt like a lot. It's he's using maps to try and reconstruct his former life, using like locations and places, and using maps and directions to figure out what happened in this time. And the book is taking this very similar stance of mapping out Nathaniel's life, but of course with a map you're only getting a representation, an image representing the real picture, and that is also very much the case in this book. You're getting Nathaniel's idea of what happened, but until the end of the book, there is a lot he doesn't understand. By the time the book ends, it still hasn't quite come together in his mind. So it's like it's a work in progress that he has to keep following these directions. And that is what the book feels like. It feels like this very well mapped out, well told story that develops as you read on, and it's just a really enjoyable read. It uses the idea of like opposing ideas a lot. So you've got, it's the book set in 1945, so you know the ideas of war and peace, of criminals and innocent, you know, people who do criminal things, but for good reasons maybe, and it kind of, it intersects them very much, and it explores how much these ideas can shift. It's I particularly enjoyed the idea of, even though the war has finished at the time that Nathaniel's childhood in this book is set, it is still having an impact on people's lives. You know, it's an impact that will continue on, and it completely changes the path of some characters and where you'd think that they would go and where they end up. It's just, it's beautifully written. I really enjoyed those little tangents about, for example, greyhound racing or climbing societies at Cambridge University, that they just kind of go off for a few pages, and you'd learn about something that you wouldn't have thought you'd ever be interested in learning. But otherwise, it sticks to its story. It's just, it's not an exciting book. I wouldn't say it's an exciting book. It's just it's a book that you're happy to read, and that you know when you're reading it, you're in good hands. So yeah, in my personal shortlist, bearing in mind I've still only read 9 of the books, I feel like it probably would have been in there, but I can completely understand why it didn't make the actual Man Booker shortlist. But definitely recommended if you just like quality literary novels. So yeah, so I'm still waiting for the 4 books that I have coming to me from the library that have been in transit for what feels like weeks now. In fact, it has been weeks. 2 of the books that I have yet to read did make the long list, the short list. That's The Overstory and The Long Take. 2 didn't. That's The Water Cure and Normal People. But I'm still planning on reading all of them, especially because I've heard so many good things about Sally Rooney's Normal People. So yeah, I really hope I get them soon. And otherwise, we've had a lot of viewings on our house this week, so it's been a slower reading week than usual, but I am planning another video about a couple of books that I finished this week. I'm going to do a dual review of those, so I will see you next time with that, and until then, happy reading. Bye bye.